Welcome to GV247.tv, the Global Vision Channel, a non-profit web TV channel bringing biblical perspective to the world in which you live.
Hello, dear friends and family in Christ, and welcome back to this special edition of the Weekend Prog on Channel 1. And this week, we're also featured on Channel 25, Focus on Israel, as we continue to pray about the war which has been waged against Israel, not just because we love the people, but because what happens in the Middle East, and in particular in Israel, affects all of us, according to the Bible, especially in the light of where we are now in the Bible timeline and the prophecies concerning Jesus' return and the end of the age as we know it. Now, one of the situations that has been exasperating so many of us is not only the media bias, which makes it sound as though the atrocities of October 7th last year didn't happen, or worse, that Israel somehow deserved it. They ignore the fact that the terrorist organization Hamas, along with local Palestinians from Gaza, murdered around 1,200 Israelis. There were 5,431 injured, and there are still, at this moment in time, 116 Israeli hostages not accounted for. So how does Israel combat the misinformation and disinformation and downright lies told in the media, which stirs up people who just don't bother to check out the facts? So, welcome to another Israel update, and this time it's from our UK correspondent Christina Jones. She's currently in Cambridge in England, who we haven't talked to for quite a while. And before we do, can I also point you to Channel 14, The End Times, with dozens of programs by experts, and many of them are very short overviews of Bible prophecy, as well as much longer programs, and that will give you an idea why the facts are so important from a biblical perspective. If you're already watching on our YouTube channel, just go to our homepage there at Global Vision TV, and underneath the Watch Now playlist, you will see our channels 1 to 26 laid out for you. So, without further ado, we welcome back our dear friend and colleague, Christina Jones. Now, she's the Communications Associate for Camera UK. She's born and raised in Scotland to Canadian parents, and she obtained her BA from Glasgow University and her MA from Tel Aviv University. And it was while there that she became more involved in Israel advocacy. Now, she's since worked in that domain for more than 5 years, starting at the Embassy of Israel in London for 2.5 years as the Assistant for Intercommunal Affairs within the Public Diplomacy Department. And she then reopened the Centre for Scotland and Israel Relations on behalf of the Embassy, and has been with Camera UK full-time since September 2023. And in fact, I think the last time we spoke to her, it was via Scotland and Israel Relations, the centre for them. And most of you will now be familiar, however, with Camera, due to our interviews with Tricia Miller, one of our other correspondents, who, in fact, she gave us an eyewitness account from Israel just a couple of weeks ago. Camera stands for the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting and Analysis. Now, wherever you are in the world watching this, dear viewer, this is of vital importance for you to have a clear understanding. I just want to explain a little bit more. Camera UK was formerly known as UK Media Watch and BBC Watch, and it's the UK division of Camera, which is the US based. It's got about 65,000 member media monitoring and research organization. It was founded in 1982. Now, that is dedicated to promoting fair, accurate and balanced coverage of Israel in the media. And it challenges inaccurate, skewed and often inflammatory characterizations of Israel that mislead news consumers and policymakers, and often fuels anti-Jewish racism. Now, they don't just monitor the media for bias, they proactively engage with journalists and editors to challenge false or misleading claims about Israel, which have proved extremely successful in garnering dozens of substantive corrections each year to articles and op-eds which are in violation of the accuracy clause of the editor's code of practice. So you can imagine how especially busy they have been over the last year. So after all that, welcome back, Christina. Hello.
Thank you so much. Thank you for such a very in-depth, introduction to Camera and what we do as an organization and to my role. I mean, I don't think I could do any better myself, so thank you.
It really is good to see you, Christina. And you're working for this new division. I believe it's Camera, so it's on Campus UK. So can you tell us what that is? And in fact, I'm even going to ask you to explain very briefly what campus is, because we speak to people all around the world and not everybody will even be aware what a campus is. So on you go.
Campus is usually a term used for university campuses or college campuses. It's just a kind of short abbreviation that we use to refer to them. I kind of go back and forth. I say university, I say college campuses, or I just say campus, assuming most people know that. But for those who don't, that's what it means. And Camera on Campus UK has actually been active for about 10 years in the UK, but we are very small and we are slowly growing. But our campus division has been around overall in America since the late 90s, I believe. And what we do is very similar to what our researchers do for the main Camera organization in monitoring media. We basically ask students to monitor what's happening on campus in terms of misinformation when it comes to Israel and anti-Israel diatribes and everything, or anti-Semitism. So we're getting them to monitor the syllabus, what professors are saying, what the student unions are saying, and things like that, and what's coming out statement-wise within their universities. And that's what we do just generally. I don't know if you want to know more about the work that we do specifically with students and the different programs that we do offer on campus as well.
Christina, as you know, what we're seeing in the media here is we are seeing hundreds of thousands, I don't know what the figure would even be, of students around the world on university ground, on university campuses, getting away with some absolutely what must surely be illegal behavior as they campaign against Israel, against Jews, and so on and so forth. So although we've looked at and have a relationship with Camera, as you know, from the media perspective, obviously, which is what they're all about, how does the campus division connect with them?
Realistically, what's been happening post October 7th is beyond my comprehension and what I would have even imagined was going to happen this year. All I can say is I have such profound respect and admiration for the students I worked with this year, and those students are coming that I'm going to be working with next year, because they have no easy fate as well. But the resilience and the desire to stand up and be a voice for Israel and combat misinformation and, anti-Israel diatribes is something I personally could not have done as a student. I also would not have probably put my neck out on the parapet like that as well. So I'm very thankful for the students I worked with, and some of the ways that we supported them as well, not just through our fellowship and through the Israel societies. We helped them write statements. We helped them write letters to their university administration, gave them guidance on, if something we felt was deeming, for example, the Equalities Act. We're seeing we just made a statement on our cameraoncampus.org website about Aberdeen University giving in to the demands of the anti-Israel encampment there, and basically not outwardly saying it, but basically giving the impetus for an academic boycott with Israeli students, academics, and institutions going forward. So this is something that we've been helping students with, and it's a case-by-case example as well. It's been a very unique year, and it's been actually very draining. I'm not going to lie to you, because you take on these students' emotions and what they're feeling, and you feel for them, and you want to help them as much as you can, but you also are only able to do so much within your own remit. So we do collaborate quite a lot as well with UK's Lawyers for Israel, Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, CST. If there's something that's very egregious or crosses that line, that is complete hate speech, that supports terrorism, stuff like that. Then we work with these organizations to help get the students like legal representation and highlighting it and getting them the support that they need beyond what I can do as an individual through our organization. So there have been a lot of instances like that. So there's been a lot going on. So yes, that kind of gives you an idea of what we do. We do normally, but we also do when it's out with abnormal times. I'll put it that way. And when is a normal time with Israel, and when it comes to this, but this phenomena that we're seeing across the campuses worldwide is very interesting, and it's clearly coordinated as well. I want to highlight that there is a clear coordination. Like, there's a reason why all these tents look the same, why they all have the same slogans. And if you go on, especially within the UK encampments, which they're still very much active, and there's some universities taking the cases to the High Court to basically evict them, I guess is maybe the terminology to use, or to at least move them on. They all have the same demands predominantly. They have the same graphics that they're using. This isn't just some random people just like, doing something not unorganized, doing a little protest. This is highly organized. And I think we need to be questioning where the funding is coming and everything like that when it comes to this. And also, I think we're finding more and more, a lot of these students that we're seeing in these encampments are not students as well. So I think that's something that needs to be taken on further too. But yes, it's very interesting times we're living in, and what the next year is going to be like and look like for our students that we work with. And especially for myself, like, I have no idea what my work life is going to be like next year with everything. So I guess we just wait and see. So I hope that kind of is a long-winded answer to your question.
So you've raised a few very interesting pointers there. First of all, the fact that it is orchestrated. And of course, I would really love to say to you, do you have any ideas where it's coming from? But without you obviously dropping yourself into a mess you can't extricate yourself from. But also, as you say, the funding is to come from somewhere. But here's the thing that's really puzzled me about this, Christina. I have worked officially in the media for most of my life, and as part of as head of production from a professional film studio, we've always worked very strictly within the law, because there are so many laws that cover that govern what you can and cannot say in the media. And it's just been blowing my mind in the vernacular, seeing what's actually being put out there that is absolutely illegal. Now, I am an advocate for freedom of speech, but we have in the UK and in most civilized nations, there are laws in place that protect freedom of speech and say that there are certain things you cannot say that are inflammatory or against another religion or stirring up hatred. And yet, now, Christina, we have spoken about this in many different programs with many different guests. This is supernatural. This is abnormal. The hatred of Israel, all things Judaic, and so on and so forth. So with all my comments put together, what I'd like to do is just bring a little package to you and say, how on earth are you dealing with this, the right of freedom to speech, but the illegalities of what these protesters are saying? Number two, I would like to know about where my tax dollar, pound, euro, or whatever is going to, that allows these students the time to be able to campaign on campus, when so often we're actually paying towards the salaries of some of the tutors, for example, and the professors and people who take part in this. So I'm throwing back a whole load of questions for you. Who do you think may be behind it, where the funding may be coming from? How do they get away with it regarding freedom of speech? And of course, why is there not some massive crackdown on the universities themselves, where they are receiving funding from the taxpayer in areas? So
it's not a unknown phenomenon that foreign governments and foreign entities have been funding such things or university campuses for some time. So I think Iran has been very much involved in this and coordinating this to bring down, to this rhetoric and basically stop normalization ties with Israel, which we've seen consistently happening from strength to strength. And I even read an article the other day, basically, it's in their interest to keep the war in Gaza going, because once a ceasefire, whatever that may look like, happens, then Saudi Arabia plan to normalize relationships. Now, again, I'm just verbating what was in the media, but I do think Iran is a very big influence in this. And I also think Qatar too, because it has been known that Qatarian, I don't know if that's how you would say it, but they have been funding institutions in the UK for quite some time. So there is that influence, obviously. So, universities are conscious when it comes to these protesters and where they stand, that they have to appease both sides. And why are the universities not doing more, I think was one of your questions. I wish I had an answer. I think there's part of it funding, part of it is ignorance, part of it is not misinformation, but ill-informed. And they just want to serve their own interests. Also, because frankly, it sounds awful, but the Jewish student population is so minuscule, they probably don't recognize that, the harm that they're doing to these students. They're probably weighing out the costs, the numbers, and seeing, well, this side's more and this side's less. But I can't speak for universities and their decision-making process, because some have been good in terms of when it comes to this, and some have been really bad in terms of engaging with the anti-Israel protesters. So I think, but I do think the governments, and also because I say governments because education is a devolved matter as well. There has to be not everything can fall on the Westminster government in terms of this issue. They obviously only just oversee England. Wales oversee the education, universities, and the relationships with Wales, and Scotland the same as well. I do think stronger messaging needs to come. Do I think this funding that they've been pouring, the Westminster government poured into CST and other communal organizations, is enough? No. Did they wait too long to do this? 100%. Part of it, I think, is politics playing into this. We obviously just had a general election. But the question I think we should be asking is why our previous government took so long to come out with such a statement. Now that she's gone, Suella Braverman was actually addressing this very early on as well, with the wider demonstrations in London, calling them hate-filled and trying to get the police also to actively do things. I think there's also the fact that the police are not doing enough to engage on this topic. And I think there's also a lack of education what hate crime is too. I think they need to better their process and language and understand that, for example, from the river to the sea, what that means has been deemed acceptable by the Met Police, specifically an acceptable phrase to use, even though you and I understand the nuance and understand that this actually asking for the genocide of Israel and anyone in Israel. And I think we forget, and I don't think we discuss this enough, it's not just asking for the genocide of Jews in Israel, it's asking for also the 20% of Arabs that make up the population in Israel too. So I think that needs to be discussed more. It's a multifaceted issue, and do I have the answer to that? No. Do I have my ideas and opinions, which I've just expressed? Yes. Is it going to change? Sadly, I don't think so. I think as we consistently see when things flare up in Israel, there's always like a substandard norm, we'll put it that way, like a baseline. And we've obviously gone up and above that baseline in terms of, everything, things heated up, and then it comes down slowly, but it's never back to that baseline it was previously. So where we're going to sit once things calm down, and we are seeing things specifically in campuses calm down now because, students have graduated, it's the summer. Are these encampments going to be around until September? Once university comes back again, that's 4 months, what they've been basically starting since May, June. It's quite amount of time to make a point when nobody's even going to be on campus. But I think we need to be addressing more and more what's going to be happening next academic year.
Can I ask you, what is the biggest challenge facing now? We're using the word Zionist here, which has so many different connotations, but facing Zionist and Jewish students in the UK. And as far as you're aware, is it any different from the USA, for example? What is the biggest challenge for them?
I mean, I can only speak for the UK in terms of the students that I work with and what I'm seeing. So again, pretty much my own thoughts and opinions on this, but I think the biggest thing that is facing them is the ability for universities to protect them and their freedom of speech and to not be victimized for holding an alternative view, we'll put it that way. And that, I think, is worrying, the way in which the atmosphere is taking place, that they are no longer allowed to be this and they are being held to a slightly different standard. And that's what I think is the biggest concern right now. And will their views be upheld and enshrined when the other side, will put it that way, victimize them and basically are not following the legal side in terms of the Equalities Act? So I think that's what's facing them the biggest moment is, the ability to not be victimized and have freedom of opinion and to be involved in society. And they're slowly they are becoming outcasts, and that, I think, is the biggest concern. But for America, I can't speak for them, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And can you share some of the actual incidents that you have helped students face in this last year?
Basically, I helped some students with advice and sending them to the relevant organization who was able to put together a letter for them. One of their professors likened the Holocaust, Israel, to the Nazis and used the Holocaust rhetoric. Worked with a student in Exeter, supporting her throughout. She held a stall that was in part of one of our campaigns that we do throughout the academic year, one of our 3 campaigns to combat misinformation. She and others from the university were surrounded by about 100 anti-Israel protesters. Juice was thrown at them. The materials was ripped in front of them. They were berated and effectively had to be escorted off of campus for their own safety. So working with her and trying to bring that to light, that situation, and she actually ended up being on GB News and Talk TV discussing the wider situation.
Is there any other way that Camera on Campus UK helps support them, or do you think you've covered all of that?
So we actually hold 3 campaigns throughout the academic year. Next year is going to be slightly different and we are reevaluating, but previously we've done a campaign for a Mizrahi campaign, a Mizrahi Stories, basically educating about the plight of Mizrahim Jews being expelled from Arab lands. We also have Apartheid Week Exposed, which is combating the misinformation on Israeli Apartheid Week. And at the end of the academic year, we have this Zionism campaign and explaining what Zionism is beyond the rhetoric of, Israel's a colonial entity. We are basically showing the difference in the different colors of Zionism and basically how we're looking at cultural, religious, social, political Zionism. Other ways that we do work with students is providing them materials. If they need a specific flyer produced, we will produce that flyer for them and give it to them and basically send it out to them and get it printed. But, sometimes it's just the student comes to me and like, hey, do you have this? I don't have it, but let me work on getting that for you. So a lot of that as well, but we do our utmost to support our students on a day-to-day basis.
And what else should the universities be doing to support them?
I think universities should be doing a task force, having more like an anti-Semitism task force on campus or a committee to basically understand what, is the concerns of the Jewish students. I'm sure they are engaging in conversations with them since the encampments and everything. I think they really need to take on what the students are saying and what really does concern them and ensuring the safety of these students on a day-to-day basis. What else should they be? They should also be monitoring, what the academics are saying too, because that's part of the problem. And they should also be doing more due diligence when it comes to the student unions, because we are seeing a lot of terrorism and anti-Israel support from individuals who work within the student unions. Though they may be doing it from their personal accounts, they're still a representative. So I think they should be holding them to account more and actually reminding them that, support for Hamas, and there's different ways in which is termed of support underneath the Terrorism Act as well. So even praising October 7th is, I believe, under the Terrorism Act, actually support. And, I think they need to be actually prosecuting certain students that are doing these things to fellow students.
I heard a few days ago about a primary school in Scotland. So for those of you not in the UK, a primary school is very much elementary, usually age 5 to 11, where a little 7-year-old boy was wanting to change the password on his Game Boy type thing to whatever it was, to from the river to the sea. And a lady whose little boy played with him, went to speak to the mum about it. And apparently it came from school, where the children were told the so-called numbers every day of Palestinian children that had been killed. Now, I know you're not here to get deeply into the politics, involved in the politics, but of course we have the whole fake UN, the UNRWA thing. And I had to, I'm sure many other people have seen it, witness the vile beating up with iron bars of Palestinians who had actually dared to try to get some of the food that Israel had let in, and it was Hamas handcuffed them, sprayed them, Arabic on their backs and green paint, and beat them with iron bars. There is so much out there that there's the fact that that some of the hostages are non-Jewish, they're Muslim or they're Arab. And as for the LGBTQ plus lobby marching for them, no wonder people are shouting, go and live there, and then you'll find out what it's like. So we have all of this huge dichotomy. And at the end of the day, we're saying, well, what can the government do? What can the government do to protect Jewish, Zionist, and pro-Israel students in the United Kingdom, for example?
I think people, if they really want to enforce change, should be, contacting their official representative and giving them this information, sharing, like, for example, on our website, just our general camera website, you can be sharing the misinformation that's going around and how this is disseminated into wider society. So you're saying, like, this is going into schools. I actually just watched a video, because you brought up schools. I watched a video. It was through the National Education Union, I think is what it's called now, and they did a whole series with the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. And one of the individuals was effectively in one of the sessions. It's also ironic they had a session on anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, but you have the Palestine Solidarity Campaign trying to define that. It's interesting in its own right. But in one of the sessions, the individual is trying to strip the Jewish identity from Israel and saying Israel is just a place. There's no, it's very interesting. You can go on to, I believe it's Campaign Against Anti-Semitism has it recorded. And this is something they're trying to put into schools. I think we need to be educating more with the schools and ensuring, because to some extent we're letting the way for radicalization coming across and starting them early on too, with this, and also in this inherent hatred and despise for Jews without giving the wider context. Yes, we're not denying, any Palestinian child to die is not a tragedy. We are not denying that. But what we are trying to highlight is the accurate numbers and the fact that we are trusting Hamas as the be-all and end-all for information, when for the likes, you cannot be a journalist in Gaza without being associated with Hamas. How is that unbiased media and impartiality? When you've already got the information coming from Hamas or their own journalists who are associated with them, I think this also needs to be discussed further. And obviously a 7-year-old won't understand that, which I recognize as well. That's very intricate, it's nuanced and everything, which you and I assume a lot of the listeners will understand. but I think we need to be dealing with this more and more. And I think also, for example, I don't even know anymore, and it was a very small thing. I don't think we realistically teach Judaism so much in schools anymore, or even the Holocaust. And I think that's also an issue. We're saying never again, but unfortunately, the way the rise of anti-Semitism is, we are, and I don't want to say that, but we're not like at the gas chambers, for example, but the victimization and ensuring that Jews are making Jews the problem is reminiscent of a time bygone, and that should not be the same anymore.
Absolutely, Christina. And I know we'll need to wind up. We've gone over time. But what a lot of people don't understand, and particularly those who call themselves Christians, is that the whole movement behind this is basically Saturday people first, and then the Sunday people. So you need to be careful. You need to know exactly what you're talking about when you're going to be marching and supporting something that is really coming against God's word. So there is a spiritual side. So Christina, just very briefly, let's end on an uplifting note. I think you were starting to say something earlier about, just tell us, are there any success stories in your work with the students?
A lot of the students now that I've been working with this year, some of them are still, in studies, but some of them are going on to internships with very well-known think tanks within the UK. And I think those are the success stories that I'm taking from all of this, and that they're going to be voices in and amongst the very hard world that's coming out. And we've had successes in the sense that, things have been taken down and retractions and statements have been made by individuals as well. So those are the successes I want to end on.
Thank you, Christina. So I really do want to thank you giving of your time, especially as you're getting married very shortly. So you're in the midst of wedding preparations as well. So really appreciate your time. And we send you both our love and very best wishes from Global Vision TV. And as for you, dear viewer, be sure to tune in next week for the weekend program on Channel 1. But until then, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other programs to watch. Just pick your favorite subjects from its own channel here on our YouTube homepage, as they're from very short, a minute or so, to nearly 2 hours long. And please be sure to subscribe and like any of those you enjoy. So until then, keep looking up as our Redeemer draws nigh, and keep looking down if you're seated with Christ in heavenly places. So God bless you. Thank you again. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye just now. God bless. Bye-bye.
This is GV247.tv, bringing biblical perspective to the world in which you live. A powerful free resource with hundreds of short films on a wide range of Bible topics from experts around the world, plus full-length sermons and programs for teaching and encouragement. Choose from current affairs, signs of the times, a chance to voice your own opinion, and special offers on our full-length feature films, documentaries, and study materials. At over 4 hours in length, the Lamplight Project is a systematic 12-part Bible study series, a powerful teaching tool that begins with the origins of life and takes the viewer on a comprehensive journey packed with high-profile interviews, film, graphics, and illustrations, concluding with the return of Christ and an encouragement to stand firm and be faithful. Complete with a free study guide download for both personal and group study, this powerful interactive guide connects to over 1,000 programs with expert interviews on GV247.tv, our free service web TV channel. Does My Life Have Meaning? A powerful 1-hour presentation produced from the Lamplight Project. With a free copy of the Gospel of Luke, this film is crammed with engaging interviews, film and graphics. A life-challenging film to those searching for answers. As distributors for the Jesus film, we offer this timeless movie based on Luke's Gospel. This clear presentation of the life of Jesus Christ has been viewed worldwide and translated into over 1,200 languages. We provide the film with a free copy of the Gospel of Luke. The Daniel Project is a popular TV documentary that presents an overview of Bible prophecy and an encouragement to read the signs of the times. Hailed as one of the best TV films to be made on the subject, DVD extras feature a heart-to-heart interview about the way of rescue. Based loosely on the documentary, The Daniel Connection is a full-length feature film. This fictional thriller incorporates many of the themes promoted through pop culture and social media which affect people on a global scale. Launched at the Cannes Film Festival, The Daniel Connection points the ever-skeptical viewer to search the Bible for answers to life's deepest questions. We've been serving the body of Christ for over 30 years, and if you would like further information, please do not hesitate to get in touch.